Welcome to the Be Unstoppable podcast. My name's Lisa Clifford and I am your host. In this podcast, I hope to explore in-depth subjects with each guest that help us have an understanding and a really lovely exploratory conversation that shines a light on different thoughts, different ways of thinking and being. My passion in life is to help people unlock their incredible human potential, where they listen to their heart's desires of dreams and goals that they want in their life, and that they dare to go for them with belief and with energy. And that's why I became a master firewalking and empowerment instructor trainer, so that we are helping people in an incredible way to see who they are and feel invincible, so that old ways of thinking are not holding them back. So I hope you enjoy this next episode. Welcome, lovely Effie Moss. I have to give you your full title, Mrs. Effie Moss. And thank you so much for sharing this unique time together on the Be Unstoppable podcast. I'm all about helping people unlock what holds them back. And I think that one of your arms, although I think all of what you do helps people not be held back, but one of your arms that we're going to talk about in more detail today is human design. And we're not talking Harley Street plastic surgery. I mean, do they do it on Harley Street? I don't know. Just asking for a friend.
Should they do that? I don't know.
So for those people that don't yet know you, can you just share something about you that is just puts you into context?
Yeah, so I love this question because it's which version of me am I turning up as today? Yeah. So I think we were chatting beforehand before we hit record. I feel like I've said all the good stuff before we hit record, and now it's like, oh.
I think you've got even more good stuff.
So just to say hello to everybody. So as Lisa said, my name is Effie, and really I've got quite an eclectic tool bag in that my career really has been focused around business and marketing, startup. I currently have my own marketing and business company, so I step into businesses as a fractional CMO or whatever really anybody needs, and that's been built.
What does CMO stand
yeah.
for?
You could say part-time marketing director, really, I suppose. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. I'm a marketer. But CMO is a chief marketing officer.
Marketing officer.
And the reason I say CMO is because it depends on the level you go into the company. So I'm not the person that will go in and necessarily do your social media content, but I am the person that will go into your company and look across all of your marketing touch points, look at your strategy, look at how you're executing that strategy, looking at your team, how marketing fits into sales, how that then feeds into all the other elements within your company. I'm also the person that could go in and say, well, if somebody wants to raise funding, how can they do that? How can they get their business ready for exit? So there's lots and lots of different, I suppose, facets to it. And, I've kind of I think it's been about, I feel old saying this, I just realized it's about 24 years. My career, it's been 24 years. And it started in corporate. So I worked for companies like Skype and Marks and Spencer's and Hewlett Packard. So that was a great deal of fun. And it taught me a lot about working with people, team dynamics, organizational structure. And I suppose in those days I was very operational. So I'm very good at organizing things. And bringing people together. And I realized that's a bit of a superpower as I've kind of gone through my career. And then I stepped away from that. And whilst I was doing that, I've got a very strong entrepreneurial spirit, because I was the child that got caught. Do you remember the wooden desks with the lids?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. I was the child.
And the inkwell.
So I was the child that got caught selling handmade friendship bracelets at lunchtime in that desk. Yeah, that's me. I was that child, at 8, 9 years old, doing that. And then the thing I remember about that experience is that, firstly, doing it, because now I think, gosh, if my daughter is nearly 14 had showed any of that, I'd have been like, what's going on? So I've always had this very strong entrepreneurial spirit, and I remember kind of like having it all confiscated. I think that's the other part of remembering, because I don't think they knew what to do. You know, I'm 46 years old, and I don't think they knew what to do with, you know, somebody who was kind of showing those kind of that skill set and those talents at that age. Whereas now we would nurture it. You know, there's homeschooling, there's world schooling, there's different types of like ways of kind of nurturing that. You know, my daughter sells things on Vinted, for example. So she's literally earning money while she's at school. So maybe she does have the streak, and I'm probably not realizing it. But
it's when it's when you step into your wardrobe and she's sold your clothes.
oh yeah, she does that. And interestingly enough, it's my stuff that is flying, which is making me smile massively because I'm uncool. Yeah, it's my stuff. So I'm like, it's all good. But you know, you would kind of like develop that, I think, in your child, because like we encourage it. You know, the moment she asked me, I went, well, what do you want to do? And she gave me a little bit of a plan. And I went, yeah, sure, just let me know if you need anything. She asked me questions about, you know, when she was packing it all up, what she should include inside it, you know, and we were trying to say to her, just make sure you include a little note, make the experience like really nice, because that's something I would always do for my product businesses. And also from a marketing point of view, right, you kind of like, you want to make sure you give somebody an impression of increase at every opportunity. And you know, she's been learning, but then once she knows, she kind of knows, and then she goes off and does her own thing. And you know, she'll message me sometimes from school and just say to me, you know, I've just sold something, just keep an eye out if it's coming, you know, tell daddy to get the packing stuff ready. And I'm like, she has an entire fulfillment operational kind of process at home. You know, it's like, sell it, she takes pictures, lists it, sell it, and then gives it to my husband to go pack, and then just like manages him. It's just hilarious to watch. You know, but I think when I was little, I didn't quite know what to do with it, because we came from the era of, well, the generation above us, it was like one job your whole life, good
That's
pension,
right.
you retire. So suddenly having this multi-passionate entrepreneurial child that just wanted to explore and do lots of different things, you know, and I come from an entrepreneurial family, you know, I'm Greek. Everybody in my family has their own business. My dad had his own business, you know, so it was never a surprise within the culture. But it was absolutely a surprise to everybody else. And so I'm always grateful for having stepped into corporate, and I'm always very grateful for the skills I learned. And I would dip back into that often throughout the rest of my career as I built my businesses. So when I was on the early steps of that journey, you know, I was saying to you before, I had a doggy business which had doggy accessories and harnesses and things. And I held the license for Corian for Mr. Men. So I had all Mr. Men bedding, hoodies, things like that. And I sold them on QVC. I sold them in Pets at Home. I sold them independent pet shops. And that was whilst I was holding down a corporate job. And I used to have a little pink shed at the bottom of my garden. And we used to do it
I've
on there.
noticed the pink in the background.
Oh,
And so how does human design fit into all of this then? Because that is a fascinating awareness. I don't know what to call it. We were saying that earlier, what to call it? To call it a tool, a structure, a model. But how did you come across human design? First of all, though, what is human design?
So human design is a framework, and it is founded on the Chinese I Ching. It's founded on the Judaic Kabbalah system and the Western astrological system. So it takes facets from all of these ancient, established, let's call them frameworks, and brings them all together into what we now call human design. And human design was brought to life by a gentleman called Ra Uru, who I think actually is 76 today. I'm sure I remember seeing that. I could be wrong. So if there's any human design people watching this, oh, she's wrong. I could be wrong, but I'm sure I remember seeing that. And he died a number of years ago, and he died before he completed the work on it, in the sense that if you ever see any YouTube videos on him and anything like that, they're a bit miserable. That, you know, and he deliberately kind of used wording to wake people's self up, to bring awareness to them, to make them realize that, you know, they're not actually human beings, they're souls, you know, living a life, living an experience on this planet. And that, you know, and trying to help people understand that they hold gifts, and when we all honor those gifts and we honor our purpose and we honor who we are, every part of who we are, that we all really fit together like a glove. Because if we're all stepping into our power, then actually we're then able to raise consciousness and everything else around us. So I'm kind of using these words, but like, I think, you know, the light, we'll be able to bring light to everything, I suppose, is another way of saying it. So it's been an interesting journey. So human design, I've been studying for 3.5 years. And last year I took it a little bit more seriously and I did a whole bunch of certifications on it. And the only reason I did, and I'm doing quotes because you can't really certify human design, but hey, that's what people want to do. But the reason I did it was because I think that when you're teaching and you're exploring something new that is unheard of, people seem to feel more comfortable when it's grounded in something. And human design is also often called the science of differentiation because it talks about neuroscience, it talks about quantum physics. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, just because it's, you know, it talks about quantum physics, just because it talks about science, that's why you should listen to it. You know, it's a choice. You know, if you find anything that we're going to talk about interesting, then great, you know, let that sit with you, let that resonate and explore it if that's something you feel called to do. But, and if it doesn't, then that's okay. It just means there's a different modality for you. And I say this because, you know, where did it come from for me? Well, back in 2012, I left corporate. I started sort of building a new company and I left corporate in 2014. Because I think we were discussing that I was on Dragon's Den in August 2014. So I left corporate just before that happened. And I went into my business full time. And that business took me on one of the most life-changing journeys for me personally. And now looking at my human design, it makes complete sense, which I'll allude to in a moment. But I had this kind of woo-woo side to me. I've always had this woo-woo side to me, but things were just happening around me and I couldn't quite work out why. I didn't understand anything. It was just I was aware of it. And I've always been very good at reading a room. I've always been very good at reading people. People have always lent on me for like support and things. So there was a whole bunch of stuff here that I was just like, well, you know, what is this? And when you're building, you know, a company from nothing and suddenly you're in front of 12 million people and then you carry on kind of going that through, you're very exposed. And so if you want to expose somebody's limiting beliefs, if you want to expose like areas that they might need to heal, you know, like that was not the place for it, but that's exactly what happened. And at the end of that journey, when that business, so it fully cycled. And I remember my sister, who's also quite woo, turning around and saying to me, wow, that was one hell of a reality creation. Well, I was not in a place to receive that. I was like, what do you mean? I didn't do this to myself deliberately. You know, very, very typical kind of response when you're starting on a very early spiritual journey. And so what I did was after that journey was I took literally 18 months out. We moved to the Isle of Wight. We made a lot of changes in our life and I needed to completely decompress because I wasn't happy. And that's when I started asking myself really hard questions, you know, and I noticed even looking at myself in the mirror, I couldn't do it. Didn't know who I was. I'd lost my identity to this business and this very public role that I had somehow assumed. And not willingly. That's the thing. It was just kind of like, you're doing this. And the higher you kind of go on the pedestal, the further you fall. And so it was a really like emotional.
Well, that's a belief, isn't it? Rather than a fact.
Yeah, it is a
could
belief.
well have been your reality, but it's quite an old-fashioned belief that navigates what we do. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, no, I love that you've said that because I've arrived at the conclusion. I'm saying it delivering the context of what happened, but now it's like for me, when I look at beliefs, I'm sort of digressing, but when I look at beliefs, all beliefs for me are neutral. All beliefs can be neutralized and all beliefs are neutral. And it would depend on what pair of sunglasses you're looking at that situation, person, circumstance through, will determine what you're actually projecting onto it and then creating that belief. So at that time, though, it was very basic stuff. It was very kind of like, this is, you know, it was just very, very difficult. And it was funny because I remember just kind of sometimes just sitting really quietly by myself by the sea, because I came here to also heal. And the island is a very beautiful place to come and heal. But I lost what I thought was my identity, you know, that my business was identity. And so I started really asking hard questions of myself, even down to the point of, you know, what is God? And I grew up with a very religious In Greek, we call her a yaya, so my yaya. So she's not like a nan, your grandma. So she was very religious, but religious to the point that she wasn't necessarily always nice. So, you know, and for her, it was like, you know, she sits in church and everyone had to be really quiet because she's sitting in church. And it was just, she was the most loveliest lady, but you could see it in her. She was raised in a very, you know, to believe in that things happened as per the Bible, and she interpreted the Bible to mean certain things, which I think you can often see when you're looking at it through a lens of religion. And I started to realize I felt really uncomfortable with it. And it's because I was associating all this other stuff with it. So I kind of detangled all of that, and it was hard. But, you know, the person that came out of that was somebody I love, you know, and I understand at a much deeper level. And when I look back at even photos of myself at that time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't recognize that person. And I am very, very, very different. But that then developed my whole sense of spirituality and faith. And then obviously, naturally, it flowed into law of attraction and all the universal laws. My understanding around belief systems and identity and action and those kind of things. And then I started to look at, well, we talk about faith and spirituality in terms of our life journey. But what if business, because I love business, like if anyone speaks to you, they'll say Effie loves business, go to Effie. You need something about business, go speak to Effie. And it's followed me around my whole life. And it's been a constant theme since I was a little girl. So I was really like, what is this theme that keeps coming up in my life? Like, you know, it's teaching me so much about other people, myself, the world, this experience that, you know, that we're part of. And I'm sort of thinking, well, is there more? And then interestingly enough, somebody I know a number of years ago, she says to me, we were talking about this thing called human design. Do you know anything about it? And I was like, no. But what happened was, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see this, but literally I tingled from the roots, from my top of my head, all the way down to my body, down to my toes, my arms. It was like I was completely on fire. And I just sat here and I remember just feeling absolutely ecstatic, like excited. And that was my response to it. And I think when you respond to something, you know, to something like that, you kind of then got to go, well, what is it? Like, let's explore this further. And human design, you know, you can buy tons of books. There are more and more books coming out now. There are more and more people teaching it. There are more and more people sharing information about it. And, you know, lots of people are starting very high level because it is kind of like a newish thing, even though it's been around since the 1980s. Once when Ra Uru Hu died, he was kind of in a place where with human design, he just wanted to, like I said, awaken the self. So the language he used and everything was very direct. You know, like there's a gate, for example, that holds our gifts, and it's called the gate of shock. You know, you've got really kind of like strong words that are used kind of describe human design. And then I think when he died, there were a few people who kind of worked with him that then tried to grapple to kind of change that into something. So Karen Curry Parker, who I did my sort of study with, you know, she took it and morphed it into quantum human design, which is like a more softening of the language. And it's more about, yes, it's about us as people and how we operate within time and space, but it's also about how we fit together and how we can kind of heal everything around us. Her lens is very much around healing, which isn't something I necessarily always resonated with. And then you have other people in the space, you know, like Jenna Zoe, for example, and she has a human design app, and it's just a really lovely space. And she's created this really lovely community where people can kind of just go and figure stuff out. But I think a lot of people are sort of wandering around, not really thinking that let's get the app, let's look at the chart, it will tell me something, so that must be right. We're still in that phase when actually really it's an experiment. Human design is an experiment. So, you know, in a moment, I'll talk a little bit about your chart, but just because that's what your chart says, there's never any two charts the same. But if I look at your energy type, you're a manifesting generator. Well, I know lots of manifesting generators in my life, and they're all very different. You know, I'll look at the way my husband operates on certain things and like some certain parts of his chart. And I'm like, that's really interesting that you're doing it that way. Like it just awakens everything. You can't unsee things.
Yeah.
It heightens your awareness.
And I
So
think so that people can imagine everything that you've just said, because that's a lot that you've just said conceptually. One of the ways that they can see it is to go to your website, effiemoss.com.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, effiemoss.com.
Effiemoss.com, and they can get their own chart. And on this chart, you put in your date of birth, time of, but I don't actually know what time I was born because my mum's passed and when I was 14, and I'm estranged from my dad, basically. Uh, I was the black sheep of the family, but really the golden one, genuinely. But anyway, so I don't actually know the time, but my instinct tells me 2 a.m. So you put that in and where you were born. If I remembered everything, your date of birth,
Yeah,
your time, and where.
that's right.
That's it.
That's it.
And from that, you get all these different insights into what could be. And you're saying as a prefix, this is not set in stone. And you accept what you relate to and you ponder what you don't relate to, and you rule out what you think is absolute totally not you and somebody else. So
I've never had anyone do that. Over
no.
nearly 300 readings I've done now. I've never had anyone go, or if they have, they've come back to me later and gone, actually, you know what? I thought about this a little bit more and it does resonate.
But I think the thing is it's okay for people to in the moment not identify in a
There's no
moment.
labels with it, and that's what I sort of I'm in a bit of a strange place with it because I think you're right. So name and time of birth is the one that causes people a lot of challenges because they're like, well, why do you need to know my time of birth? The reason for that is because when you generate a human design chart, you literally get an outline of it, of like your human body, like human body, I suppose. It's called the body graph. And the
Yeah.
body graph tells you, shows you all these different centers. So you could match them to the chakra system, the Indian chakra system, because it's also steeped with, in that framework as well. So far, I think there's 7 chakras and there's 9 centers in human design, because in human design, and there's lots of reasons for this, it kind of split out. So you get all of this information, and the reason that you need your time of birth is because you want to try and get it as accurate as possible. And there are ways of being able to get your time of birth. There are some very clever people out there who can kind of work that out. But also, what I do is I run 6, 7, 8 charts for people, and then we just literally work it through intuitively. So far, so good.
When you say there are very clever people that can work it out, what are you referring to there?
Astrologically,
Right.
astrologers. There are some very clever astrologers out there who can literally take your placement and your birth and kind of work out doing, when I say clever, because it really is like these calculations and these kind of things on a diagrammatic wheel. They can kind of work that out for you. But the way that I've also found it very useful, because my friend came to me and didn't know his time, and I literally pulled lots and lots of charts. Now, because I know him like really well, I was able to go, actually, it's this one. And then interestingly enough, his wife then found out his time later on, and it was that one.
Wow.
So intuition does play a big part. But
Yeah.
the reason you need time, so the more practical reason, is because when your human design chart is created, there are 2 columns on either side, and this is where the Western astrological system comes in. And so one side is your soul's path and one side is your design path. And your soul's path is created 88 days before your birth. So that's why time is so important. And then obviously your design side is created at the time. It's called your personality at the time that you
So
are
just
born.
pause for a second and let's just digest that. Your soul's path, because I know this is like second nature to you, but
No,
for
no, no,
somebody
no, no, it's
listening,
fine.
I want them to be able to keep up. So your soul's path was designed 88 days before birth. How do we know it's 88 days?
Well, that's how we, yeah. This is a good question. But no, it's, I just don't want to get into all of the detail.
That's
So
okay.
no. So I just don't want to get into it. I think it's a brilliant question. And there is a very good answer for it. It's to do with our mandala. So within human design, we also have the mandala. So the body graph kind of sits in the mandala. And the mandala is a wheel, and that wheel moves all the way through each of the different gates throughout a full year. And it's funny enough, I've got a podcast this afternoon where I'm literally talking about that entire journey for April. And it's to do with the way that that is calculated is why it's 88 days.
Okay.
Right.
And so then the human design, which is the character, did you say?
Personality, yeah.
The personality, yeah. So one's the soul, one's the personality. Okay. As you were. I've unpaused you for that
No.
side note.
The reason that both are so important is because when you're looking at your chart, and this is the part that I particularly find fascinating, some human design specialists will focus on centers, some will focus on the gifts because there's 64 of those and they align to the Chinese I Ching. I find the soul path and the design path / personality path most interesting, because what I do is I take that and I literally put it into a massive big spreadsheet, and I can see essentially somebody's life journey. So I can see kind of like their personality, which is where they're living, but actually what their personality is trying to do is get to their soul expression.
Of
Because when we're
course, yeah.
soul expression, we're our highest expression, right? So, and it's a journey of a lifetime to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
all the experiences, the people we meet, you know, the lifestyle, everything, our health, all of those things. You know, and human design also has like some arrows. You'll see arrows at the top of the chart, and they tell you things like the environment you best operate, the type of focus you have, whether it's strategic or more kind of like general, you know, the type of food that you're best to digest. It's a really interesting mix. And it's quite fascinating because every time I normally just throw that in because lots of people tend to want to focus in on purpose and gifts. When I throw that in, it's like, oh yeah, that's so true. So it's quite an interesting one. And there are so many layers to it. It's like peeling back an onion.
Well,
But normally,
let's help people put a picture together then. The thing that I filled in that everybody can go in and fill in completely free and you get valuable information out of it. Is that all that anybody has to fill in for you to know their soul path and their right? So you can share what well, I don't know. I've looked at it and had a quick look at it. So you share whatever feels good about me. Um, so for everybody watching and listening, we haven't prepared this. So I'm an example so that people can hear and see what they would get from Effie.
well, so it's just to say, I have your that's why I'm doing this because I've got it in front of me. So this is the bit that's really interesting. It's like you can go to somebody and get a reading, you know, if you want to understand kind of more about yourself. And, you know, a lot of people focus on the deconditioning process. So what happens is when you look at your human design, you've got the least optimal expression of it and the highest optimal expression of it. And, you know, some people are stuck in like shadow work and things like that. And they say it takes like 7 years to kind of decondition yourself to the highest expression of it. I'm not so sure. But so you can look at it through that lens, i.e., where am I not the most optimal expression of myself? You can look at it from a marketing point of view, for example, in a business and kind of go, right, well, I'm a solopreneur, right? So I've got my own business, I'm a founder, I'm out there doing my thing, and I'm trying different ways of kind of expressing myself. Well, how do I do that? Like, you know, what's the thing that suits me the most that energetically will draw other people towards me? And human design is all about energy. So whenever you're looking at human design, I think the most simplest way of kind of looking at it is actually coming at it with a question. So some people will go, right, what's my purpose? You know, what are my gifts? How am I going to best market my business? How can I make money in what I'm doing? You know, what are the options available to me? And there are different versions of it. So you have the human element of it, so looking at the person, and then there's also a version of it that looks at the business. And then you've got family dynamics, and you've also got relationships. So you can look at it along many, many different ways. But basically, if you're looking at human design just like in its simplest form, then it's the way that energy moves through you, right? So if we prescribe to the fact that everything is energy and that our vibration is, you know, the way that we interact with the world, right? That's kind of like what we emit, and therefore that is what we attract. When you're looking at human design, there's 5 energy types. So there is a projector, a generator, manifesting generator, a reflector, and did I say generator? There's 5, right? So, oh, manifester. I said generator second time, manifester. So the manifesting generator is a combination of the manifester and the generator, right? So there are 5 energy types. And what your energy type tells you is how you interact with the world, how you interact with the energy around you. And I think as we are sort of moving along, like as a consciousness, I suppose, as collective consciousness, as we're moving along, I think we're giving ourselves more permission, for example, to do work that we love, to fill our life with things that bring us joy, to connect with people that we feel more compelled to be near and be with, rather than like force ourselves into a situation because that's the way it has always been. And that is our energy operating. That's our energy interacting with the world. So obviously this is a caveat with yours because your time isn't for sure and we haven't done the work to make sure. I know you've intuitively given it a 2 a.m. and I will honour that, but it's just not everything may hit for you. So that's a small caveat. But basically, when you look at yours, it just made me smile because it made me smile. There's a couple of reasons it made me smile was because firstly, you are a manifesting generator, so that is your energy type. And our man-gens of the world are here to help build things that we can then use and be directed with, right? So manifesting generators are our multi-passionates. They are truly our multi-passionates of the world. And they are normally the people who will like have multiple projects on the go, pick some things up and put things down. And often they may have been told by people before, like family members who love them, you know, why can't you just focus on one thing? Why are you always changing and doing multiple things? Why, you know, but you're meant to. You need the energy from doing lots and lots of different things and learning and experiencing those different things to help propel you into the next things that you want to do. So if you are running a business, you might have several businesses, like several different businesses, you know, or you might have a business with different revenue streams. So with manifesting generator, you know, it's funny because my husband's also a manifesting generator, and I always smile because he always leaves piles when he's sorting things out. And I'm like, why is there always piles? And it's literally his way of sorting through these many, many different things. And now that I know he's a man gen, I'm like, oh, it makes complete sense. The other thing about being a manifesting generator as well is that your goal is to get to the end point as quickly as possible, even if it means jumping over a few hurdles. So think of it like building furniture and, you know, from IKEA, right? Your goal is to actually get that thing built. You're not going to spend time or have the patience to read the manual. You're just not
completely. Completely. And I like everything in its place, otherwise I feel stressed. And in my business, I don't do just one thing, but all things meet one purpose. And you know, I've been on the radio quite a bit, and somebody says, oh, why did you become a radio presenter? I said, because I'm doing what I love. Just because I don't want to do that all the time. And I loved creating, and I love doing my dynamic empowerment events, and I love coaching on a one-to-one, and I love painting, but I don't necessarily have lots of apps open at the same time. But I do I tend to be sticking to one thing at a time.
But you're expressing your passion through different avenues.
Different things, yes.
So yeah, that is very much the man gen. And I've seen manifesting generators who've come to me and said, you know, I'm really frustrated. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? And they're like, this one thing every single day. And I'm like, you need to, what are the other things you love? And it's like, well, I love this, there's no time. I'm like, you have to make time. You will make time naturally because everything will open up around you to be able to include those things.
Yeah.
But if you deny yourself expressing yourself, if you deny yourself the ability to express yourself through those passions,
Yep.
it will like dry up, it will like fizzle up, and like it'll be the embers of a
So when I
like.
say at one time, I mean like if I'm working on something, I'm working on that, and then I'm working on the next thing. But I maybe work on 10 things a day. But yes, what else?
I'm just as you said that, I was just quickly looking at something for you.
To see
Yeah,
what's
okay. Yeah, no, it's all good. So I think so it's really brief. So like so a manifesting generator, they want to try and get to the end, and sometimes so they'll build the furniture, and sometimes you might go back and just flick through the manual and go, actually, was that the right way? It's almost like just double checking yourself. Or sometimes you'll go back and do it that way so you can relearn it that way. But what you're trying to do is squeeze as much out of what you are doing as quickly as possible. So
yes.
like with my husband, you know, he is the most impatient driver I've ever met. And if anyone listens to my YouTube, I talk about this a lot because it just makes me chuckle. And I used to kind of like, because I've got an open emotional center, basically, if you've got an open center, you will take on the energy around you and you amplify it. So it looks like I'm even more emotional and I can get stressed. So he's stressed, I'll be 10 times more stressed because I'm literally taking it in because he's within my auraic field, which, by the way, your auraic field extends to half a room. So if you think about who comes into that space, right? So you're absorbing that energy and mixing it with yours. And when you understand your human design, like you have an open emotional center, you can then discern, well, is this mine or theirs? Am
Exactly.
I genuinely feeling this, or are they doing
Yeah.
it? Like, you know, what is it?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really, so when he gets impatient, I used to really like, I'd be there leaning across going, like, because I could feel it. Whereas now I'm like, oh, he's just doing his stuff, right? And the reason he's getting impatient is because somebody has got in his way when he's trying to get to his
And
goal,
also, yeah, because
destination.
I don't know if he's like me, but I feel like I've only got so much energy. And whilst I've got the energy, I've got to spend it. And if you get in the way and interrupt and make it longer, my thing that I'm about to do may not get finished or even
Yeah.
started. Is
Well, it's
that
interesting because with the manifesting generator, you're meant to spend all of, and the generator types, spend all of your energy so that you go to bed at the end of the day just feeling exhausted. And then as you sleep, everything kind of fills back up and off you go again. It's a really interesting way you've described it, because for you, if that's energy, then that's great. For him, it's kind of he's trying to get the thing done and
yeah.
somebody's getting in his way. And also when you look at, so that's your energy type, you know, it's very brief, but that's your your energy
Mm.
type. And when you look at strategy, so your strategy is how you interact with others, right? So it's how you interact with others. All of the types, bar the manifesting generator, have one type of strategy. But manifesting generator, I believe from everything I've observed and all the stuff, is that you actually have two, because you have this combination of the generator strategy and the combination of the manifestor strategy.
Yeah.
And so the manifestor part is to inform. So you're not, when you're going to go and do something, it's not that you need to ask permission. It's just you just say. So like, for example, before our call, Clive's gone to the tip and he yelled out, I'm going to the tip. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's him informing.
Yeah.
He'll literally say to me, I'm going to the garden. He doesn't realize he's doing it, but he's informing. And when he doesn't, there is some kind of story. Something has happened. And I've likened it to that when he's informing, he's clearing the energy from the path ahead, so
Yeah.
he can get to his goal,
Yeah.
his destination as quickly as possible, because that's what his manifesting generator energy needs. So it's like informing clears the boulders from the path, right? But if he forgets to inform, then little boulders start appearing and he gets impatient and he's got to, you know, there's a diversion and then there's this and there's that. You know, it's actually quite magical to watch it in somebody. When I first learned it, I was like, But the more I observed, literally, like from my own life and everybody around me, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and that's what embedded it within me. It was more the observation and taking each piece and then kind of just seeing how it plays out. And the other part of the strategy is to respond. So the generator type, which are also builders, but for them, it's very much around passion projects and they won't necessarily do lots of projects, but they have to do things that are fun for them and they excite them, because if they don't, they'll burn out. But much like the manifesting generator, they've got a lot of sacral energy. They can go, 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 and they need to exhaust themselves at the end of each day. Their strategy is to respond. So basically what happens is, and I've seen this with my mum because she's a generator, literally if she wants to change something that she's doing, the universe will just drop it in her lap and then drop another thing and another thing. And then she just has to discern, is this something I want to do, right? Does this feel good to me? You know, she needs to kind of use her authority, and I'll talk about that in a minute. That's how she makes decisions, to be able to respond to it. But it's really quick. I want to say it's almost instant. The other types don't have that as much. You know, I'm a projector, and for projectors, our strategy is wait to be invited. So coming on this podcast, doing anything like that, I literally have to wait for invitations, because for a projector, when an invitation is offered, it means that the other person is open to hear what you have to say. And I can give you many stories where I've said something and people have just looked at me, and then the person next to me has repeated it and everyone's gone, oh, right. Yeah. Of course, being a younger version of me, I was like, what just happened? You know, whereas now I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Well, I didn't wait. I was trying to jump in. I was trying to, like, there wasn't space created for what I had to say. And so when you're looking at the response strategy, it's not that you have to respond to absolutely everything that's, you know, sent your way, but it's to use your authority to discern whether that's right for you or not. Yeah. But do you want me to mention a couple of other things while I'm here? This will take a while. But
well, we've got another 5-10 minutes, but
okay.
Just so that people get a kind of fuller idea of its value. Got Lexi behind me participating.
So I can give you just a couple of things. So your authority, so this is how you make decisions. So with a manifesting generator, your manifesting generator design, it's sacral. So it's a sacral sound. So as children, we kind of have that sort of removed from our generated children, because we kind of encourage them to use their words, you know, trying to teaching them how to talk. When in fact you would have had probably a sacral sound, which is like uh-huh for yes and for no. So you can have sacral sessions and things like that that help you to tune in with that sacral sound. But again, you also have the 5720 channel. So you have the 5720 channel, which is a lot like my husband. And the reason I'm pointing that out to you is because he doesn't have a sacral sound, even though the design's telling him. He actually repeats the last word that I say if he's in agreement. So if I say to him, should we go out for ice cream? He'll go, ice cream. Do you want to go and order some food? Food. And he'll literally repeat the last word that I say. And I've noticed that's for people with the 5720 channel. If they're a manifesting generator, they actually express not through their sacral sound, but through repeating the last word. And that's for him, right? And I've seen it with a couple of other people with the same channel. So, you know, you can be a purist and, you know, recondition your sacral and just kind of like go around tapping into my sound, or you can follow what you are setting for yourself and have done, as long as you trust it, as long as you are clear, that is how you make decisions. And I think that's the important piece, is the trust. So knowing in yourself. But it's really funny because it's so lovely, because when I was looking at your throat center, I was like, well, I wonder, you know, about your communication style. And I know people listening to this won't know this, but when we were trying to get together for the podcast, you would always leave me lovely messages on LinkedIn. So, you know, and it always made me smile. And it was always infused with lots of just enthusiasm. And there was just a brightness to it, which I absolutely loved. Aww. And when I looked at the gates that are active within your throat, it was exactly that. It's the ability to bring life to something, to bring joy to it, to communicate it in a way that's really enthusiastic and helps people kind of just feel excited by it and engaged. I thought you might find that interesting.
I do, because, you know, as a speaker and a trainer and a facilitator, and my coaching style is enthusiastic. Many coaches stay very neutral, as if to not appear to be for somebody's goal or against them, or for their action or against them, very neutral. I'm not a pure coach. And so I listen to where people's real dreams are in what they're saying, because what people tend to do is share a bit of it and pull back, like, and then as if they're waiting, they don't want to expose it, or they don't want to look stupid, or they and I listen really carefully where that is for people. And then when it comes to life, I boost it. So, I completely believe that if they have a dream or a goal inside them, and they're with me, and they've shared it with me, however tentatively or what disguised or through a back door, I believe them. I believe if they can give birth to the idea, then they have everything about them and can achieve everything about them to execute it. And so I absolutely am an energetic force for them behind their goals that they perhaps have felt not for this lifetime, and so my voice is important, and me speaking authentically. So I've never been trained to be a motivational speaker, because I don't want my heart and spirit and truth to be moderated in place of walking around the stage, or using different language patterns, because I feel like when I'm on the stage, I'm speaking the language that audience needs, that's in front of me, and that I intuitively know it. So,
well, there's a reason for that. So the throat piece, like normally I'd go through each of the gates, but the throat piece that I just mentioned is just basically how your the highest expression of how you communicate, so that it brings people into you. Now, when I talk about purpose, and the reason I'm smiling is because your purpose isn't what you do. Your purpose is who you be, right? So when you are doing something that you love, and when you're doing something that's aligned with how you express your energy, how you best interact with people, when you're using the gifts that you have been given, then it will light you up, and that light will then emanate from you, and it will just pull people in. It will attract people into you. Well, your purpose, and I'm just looking because I always get there's like so many of them, so I just got to remember the name.
Is this where you tell me I'm meant to be a mechanic in a garage under a bonnet?
No. It's exactly what you've just said, actually. So the official name is the Personal Destiny of Penetration 3. Right. So it's a bit of a mouthful. So what does it mean? Well, it's around your ability to use your intuition to be able to read other people and essentially sense what they need. And it's to be able to trust your spirit to be able to do that. It's a knowing. You won't be able to explain it to anybody. You never will be able to, like, you've just done that, but you'll never be able to go into the grant. You can't. You'll say, this is what we do, and this might be the effect of it, but you'll never be able. Someone says, well, how do you actually do it? Just break it down for me. You won't be able to, because it comes from your innate knowing. And it's kind of like you're able to sort of understand other people's needs and desires so that you can then help them to fulfill those. So it's when you are doing that work, you're very likely shining from your eyeballs. You're completely on, let's use your word, you're on fire.
Yeah.
Literally, tingly, everything, because when you're aligned, and then people will feel that from you. There is a lot of truth when people, if you're talking about like marketing, because I know it's a big part of my life, but when we talk about things like attraction-based marketing and stuff, and people go, oh, is it real or is it not? Well, attraction-based marketing is just basically energy marketing. It's just basically, what we put out into the world really is, the type of things that we attract back into us. And so if you want to kind of shine your light as brightly as you possibly can, then understanding something like human design and kind of like going on a bit of an experiment with it to see how it kind of works in your day to day, is a really powerful thing to be able to do.
It is, and I guess it's really reassuring for people to confidently keep going in a way that might be different to how everybody else is moving in the world.
Everybody has a unique story. Everybody's human experience. So we're souls here to experience in human form, right? So, and on that basis, that means that everybody's story is unique. Now, for example, my friend, he has 2 identical twin girls and they're 1.5. And I did like a 3-hour session of reading for them. And I'm always reluctant to do it when they're so young, because what you don't want is people latching on going, well, this is their digestive type. You have to let them explore the world. You've got to let them figure stuff out. And the reason they wanted the reading was just to understand kind of like how can they best kind of facilitate that, right? So they don't restrict them, they don't limit them. They understand the potentials of their energy type. 2 identical girls, born 2 minutes apart, very simple, exactly the same charts, but expressing them in very different ways. Simply because the people that they will be exposed to will be different, even though they may be in the same room, they're going to pick up on different things from the same person.
Absolutely.
The experiences around them that they'll have, the things that they'll remember, the things that they will hear, they'll go through life in their unique way. And those things will imprint on them, right? Because our auras don't develop until we're 7. So up until that time, we're literally like going, like, just bring in everything I possibly can, like just try everything. He was saying to me that one of the little girls, she kept standing on something and falling over, like a little push, there's like push things you get, it's like a wooden, I bought them once, something with bricks in, like they'll push the little car. She kept standing in it and then she'd smack her face, and he would get very protective, which was right for him. And I was like, okay, and then she did it again, and they're looking at her, and I was like, look, she's a manifester. She's going to do things her way. And he's like, and then she'd get cross. I'm like, because she's, this is her energy type, learning how to express itself. And that's a very typical trait of a manifester, by the way, even at this age.
Brilliant.
I'm reluctant to do like relationship readings on young relationships as well. Like when people come together, sometimes I say, can you do a relationship read? But no, figure your journey out together. See if it feels right to you both first. Figure that out, right? How it works, the dynamics, feel it. And then when you get to a point where you're trying to understand it a little bit more, maybe you want to deepen that, then fine. I worry because we all go, oh, it seems so it's a label. Human design must say this, a bit like horoscopes. A horoscope says this, so this thing must happen. Well, it's going to happen because of the belief you've just applied to it, and therefore you've now attracted it into your experience. So it's like, it just makes me smile so much. It's like, okay, I'm just going to zen now. It's yeah, so you use it, but just use it responsibly, I think, because we so want to attach ourselves to labels. We so want to attach ourselves to people telling us that it's right or wrong, or it's not. It is literally a very curious experiment in how you express this version of you. So yeah.
Thank you. It is so fascinating, and we've not even scratched the surface, I am sure, of all the different ways it can be used, or helpful, or reassuring, or confirming, or enlightening. Thank you so much for all your time today. And for anybody that would like to have a little look at their chart, go to Effie Moss, EFFIEMOSS.com.
Yeah.
And scroll down her homepage, and it's on her homepage. There's a little link, and have a little look, and then get in touch with Effie if you want to have her book a session with her, to have her talk through how you can interpret it, how you can use it to either strengthen you, enhance you, or heal you, or develop you, or for growth and understanding. And you do individual sessions, don't you, as part of your business?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So it's, there's lots, like I said, lots of different facets. So there's marketing and business coaching over on this side, and then there's human design. But actually it all comes together. So it's a really interesting dynamic. And yeah, as you could tell, I can talk about it for hours. I just love it so much.
I think you've shared so much. I might have to listen back to it again for it to sink in. This might be one of those podcasts that the first round of listening, you'll capture some of it, the second round some more, and the third time most of it, because you've woven in so much information and depth and insight and stories It's been really great, Effie. Thank you
My
so
pleasure.
much for your time and heart and wisdom today.
Thank you.